My clicker's not working. Can you see me now? My name is Leslie Andrews, and I am one of the newest senior consultants at Pragmatic Works. I have 20 years of experience in IT, specializing in database design and development, most recently working on data warehouse ETLs. I'm a frequent speaker at SQL Saturdays, and I am one of the 2019 IDERA ACEs. I go climbing mostly at indoor climbing gyms, and I take photographs when I travel of the architecture and wildlife. I love to read epic fantasy. Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors, and if you're looking for something new to read, anything he has written is worth your time. Any questions afterwards, or you'd like to get in touch with me, my email is landrews@pragmaticworks.com. So everyone is talking about moving to the cloud and using Azure, but what does that mean? What can you do in the cloud, and how do you do it? In this webinar, we will review the basics of the core Azure architecture, introduce you to some of the core products and services, and leave with an understanding of the benefits of using Azure solution. This is a non-technical beginner level overview of Azure services. So if that's not what you signed up to take, feel free to leave. I'm not going to get insulted. So at the core of Microsoft Azure are data centers located around the world. When you use a service or create a resource, you're using a physical equipment in one or more of these locations. These data centers are organized into regions. A region is a geographical area that contains at least one data center that is networked to another. And some services or features are only available in specific regions. So if you want to use those, you have to be sure to deploy that resource in a region that supports it. So here's a map of all the available regions as of December 2018. Currently, there are 55 regions in 140 countries. There are also specialized regions that allow you to be in compliance with legal or regulatory requirements that your organization may have. For example, there are physical and logical instances for US government agencies that are CGIS compliant, and partnerships that allow there to be regions in China. The Azure cloud services are divided up into geographies based on borders. There are 4 geographies: the Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East, Africa. A geography is defined as a discrete market typically containing 2 or more regions that preserves data residency and compliance boundaries. These geographies are fault tolerant to withstand complete region failure through their connection to dedicated high capacity network infrastructure. Within these regions are availability zones. So all of these blue regions with the little white dots, those are availability zones, which are physically separate locations within a region that is made up of 1 or more data centers equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. These availability zones allow you to run mission-critical applications with high availability and low latency replication. And because Azure has the most regions, it can deliver your applications close to where your users are. It provides scalability, redundancy, and data residency. The final piece of the physical architecture that supports the reliability is region pairs. A large disaster could affect multiple data centers, so each region is always paired with another region in the same geography, but at least 300 miles away. So the West US and the East US are a pair, and East Asia and Southeast Asia are paired. And you can go out to the Microsoft Trust Center, and they have documentation that will show you the current list of each of the pairs. So if the disaster recovery portion of Azure is one of the things that you're looking for, knowing where your pair is might be important. So these architecture benefits provide the customers with high availability, like we talked about, scalability, the ability to increase size quickly, elasticity, agility, fault tolerance, and disaster recovery. So we've seen that there are data centers that are the source of our physical infrastructure, consisting of regions and geographies with region pairs and availability zones. So now that we understand the architecture that Microsoft has built, let's look at some of the things that we can build with it, the Azure services. So the core services that the cloud can provide are divided into 3 categories: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. When we look at a breakdown of what IT departments have to support, we get a list kind of like this, where we have hardware, networking, storage, virtualization at the base, the middle tier with operating systems and runtime environments, and then the applications and the data that they produce. When you have an on-prem solution, you're responsible for providing and managing all of those pieces. When you begin to use the cloud as an infrastructure as a service, you transfer the maintenance and the physical requirements for your virtualization, your servers, your networking, and your storage to your provider. You don't have to worry about physically providing those things. When you move up to using platform as a service, not only do you get all of the infrastructure, but you also get the operating systems and the runtime environments that are required. And when you move up to the top level, software as a service, this is a complete cloud-based application like Office 365, where all you do is open an application and it works. It's attached to cloud-based storage, so you don't have to worry about where to save your work. Your work is available from any computer that you log into from a browser. And with each step up in the services that you get from your cloud provider, the risk and upfront cost to your organization is reduced. One of the biggest benefits to using infrastructure and platform as services is the scalability. You can easily spin up hundreds of servers in a matter of minutes to deal with a surge of demand, or add more storage, or more memory, or complete network configurations. And when we're talking about software as a service, if your organization has taken on something like Office 365, well, now you don't have to worry about going to each of those computers and installing Office, or even doing it through deployment kits. It's just the user logs in, they go to the website, they have the ability to create documents, spreadsheets, databases, publications. So here are an overview of the services and features that are available in Azure. At the base that we can see is the data center infrastructure. These are the actual data centers that we talked about in each of the regions. Above that, we have our infrastructure services. Within that, we have compute. We can create virtual machines. We can create containers and use Kubernetes. Infrastructure also provides storage. We have blob storage, queue storage, which is designed for when you have multiple entryways into your application, being able to queue up those things. So if you're doing ticket sales, right, first come, first serve, whoever came in line and first in your web app versus the mobile app. You can have a queue storage where it puts those events so that they get processed in the order that they were received. We have file storage. We have disk storage. You can have traditional HDD drives or you can have solid state drives. We also have our virtual networking. We have the actual network itself with routers and switches. We have load balancers. We have DNS, domain network name, I forget. Express routing, traffic manager, VPN gateways, and app gateways. Once we move up to the platform services, we have media integration, so you can do API management. We have compute services, so you can have a container service, virtual machine scale sets. You can have a dev or test lab. You can have your developer services in the cloud, Visual Studio, Azure DevOps. We have application platforms. You can build web apps and mobile apps, cloud services, API, all of the data that we can store. We can build SQL servers, we can build data warehouses, we have Cosmos DB, SQL Server Stretch. We have table storage, which is specific for storing NoSQL from Cosmos DB. Then we get into the really cool stuff, the intelligence and analytics and IoT, Internet of Things. We can have an IoT hub, all of the devices that we have in our house now for Nest or Ring. Maybe we want to do some analytics on that. We can store that in our cloud services and use Azure to bring that data in and do analysis on it. We can create data lakes. We can do data lakes analytics. We can do cognitive services. We can do the Azure machine learning. Maybe you're not ready to go completely to the cloud. Maybe you need a hybrid solution. You need some way to back up your physical servers to the cloud. You need to be able to import and export data. And most importantly, security. We have the Security Center. We have Azure Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, key vaults. So this is just a high-level overview of the services and features that are available within Azure. So now that we know a little bit about what we can do, next thing we need to know is how to do it. The first step is sign up. You've got to go to azure.microsoft.com and select the Start Free button. One caveat, you do need a credit card for identification purposes. There are many things that you can do for free on the cloud, and until you upgrade to a paid service, your credit card won't be charged. You'll need to create or sign into your Microsoft account, and once you've completed all the sign-up steps, you'll be directed to the Azure Portal. This portal is where you will create and manage your cloud resources. And this is what the portal looks like. During the account setup that you did, a subscription was created for you. This subscription is a logical container that holds all of the information about your resources. When you create a resource, you have to select the subscription that it belongs to. And here we can see that I have two subscriptions enabled. One is the free subscription, Azure Subscription 1, and one is one that comes with Visual Studio Enterprise. It shows you the current cost that you've incurred in that subscription, because all of the resources that you build will all aggregate up to the subscription level that they belong to. And now that you have a subscription, you can create a resource. We're going to click the Create a Resource button. And that's going to take us to a list of all of the services. Over here on the right in the panel is the list of some recent ones, current featured ones, but on this left side pane here is where you can get to all of the services that are available to you. They list exactly like I showed in the overview before. We have compute, networking, storage, containers, database, analytics. The first resource that you should create is a resource group, which is a logical container for resources. And when you create a resource, you have to tell it what resource group it belongs to. So this is why you should start here. So when you go to the Resource Groups tab, it has the Add button. Almost every page in Azure Portal is very user-friendly and has a very intuitive UI for the things that have to be done in order to do what you're trying to do. So once you push the Add button, it's going to take us to the Create a Resource Group. You're going to tell it which subscription you want it to be. And here's where you're going to enter the resource group name. It doesn't actually say name, and sometimes I kind of think I'm supposed to pick the resource group, but this is where I'm creating it. So this is actually where we put the name. Once we've named our resource group and picked the region that it's going to belong to, we select the tags that we want to add to it. Tags are a way of organizing your resources into categories, and it is a key name value pair. You can create any type of name that you want. As it tells you here in the create portion, tag names are case insensitive and tag values are case sensitive. There are restrictions to the length of the name of the tag. I think it's 512 characters for the name, except for storage, and then they're 128. There is a max of 50 tags per resource. In this case, we want to add to our resource a department. And we want to say that this resource belongs to the accounting department. Resource groups cannot be nested, so you can't have a resource group within a resource group. And a resource can only belong to one resource group. When you delete a resource group, you delete all of the resources within it. When you create the groups, you can bundle them together by life cycle. So maybe you have a test environment that has a server and a network and a database, and every time you destroy that resource group, it goes away, and you're totally fine with that. By bundling them all together, you can manage them together. Now, so far I've only shown you how to create a resource in the portal, but that's not the only way. Azure also provides PowerShell, command line interface, templates, and software development kits to allow you to create resources. If you want to use the Cloud Shell option, that's this icon within the portal. When you click on that, it will welcome you to the Cloud Shell, and it gives you the option to use the Linux Bash or Windows PowerShell. As it tells you, you can switch that in the environment selector. Whatever you used last time will be your default next time. If you're interested in using the command line tools, they have Azure command line, PowerShell command line, and the unified software developer kits for popular software languages like Java and Python. You get these from the download section of azure.microsoft.com. But for now, we're going to stick to creating things through the portal. So here I have created my resource group, Azure Overview. We can see how many times I've deployed this, the tags that are associated with it, and what subscription it's with. On the left-hand side here are all of the things that we can do with our resource. One of the things that I want to look at with you now are policies. So policies are a way to apply and enforce rules for your resources. For instance, you can create a policy that every resource has to have a department tag on it. And we can use those tags in our subscription level billing in order to determine which departments are costing us the most in the resources that they're using. There are some policy templates that are set up in this Getting Started section. One of them is this Require Tag on Resource Group. So the first thing that you do is you come into the definitions and you say that you want to create a policy definition. And we've already created this one in the Azure subscription, Enforce Tag on Resource. Then we have to go to the assignment, and we want to assign this Enforce Tag on Resource to our resource group. So here we can see that I've gone through the steps to the policy assignment. I've got it at the basics. I've set up the parameters. The parameter for this rule is the tag name department has to be set up. And that was created with a JSON script that you embed into the creation process. Some of the other reasons that you might want to use policies are to restrict the region that your items are deployed to. Like I said before, sometimes there are resources that are only available in specific regions. So you might have a policy that says if your group is deploying one of those things, it checks to make sure that it's in a region that allows it. Types and sizes of virtual machines. Perhaps for your development team, you want them to be able to create virtual machines, but they can only create a pretty small one. You don't want a big beefy box in your development environment. And you can enforce naming conventions with the policies. Next up are locks. We need to make sure that resource groups aren't modified or changed, and so we can add locks to them. We have delete locks and read-only locks. So I'm going to add a lock named block deletion to this resource group. Come back out here. Now we can see that we have the lock has been added. You can edit or delete locks. Once the lock has been created, when you push this delete resource group, a little pop-up comes up and it says, oh, you have to type in this word. So you type in that word and you push delete and it says, oh, nope, sorry, there's a rule that says there's a lock on this that says you can't do this. And I tried to get a screenshot of that, but the way the little notification thing floats up, I couldn't get the screenshot. But trust me, once you put a lock on there, it won't let you delete it. So once you get a resource group, then you can add resources. And depending on the type of resource you're adding, different information will be required. For instance, servers, networks, and applications all have different requirements when you're creating them. But all those resource addition prompts and wizards are very intuitive and user-friendly. So if you go out and you say that you want to create a SQL database, it asks you, what subscription do you want to create this SQL database in? What resource group should it belong to? You have the option to create a new resource group and what the database name is. And then you go next to the networking group and you walk through the wizard. If you don't have a network, again, it prompts you to create a new one. It lets you add tags. And then when you're done, you end up with the resources listed in the bottom. So we can see now that we have a SQL server that's named pw-leslie. And within that SQL server is a SQL database named Leslie Test. That took all of about 3 minutes, and most of that was waiting for it to deploy. So security should be an integrated part of everything you design, systems, architecture, and applications. It's not something that's done as an afterthought. And Azure helps alleviate your security concerns because they have a shared responsibility model. And how much of that responsibility falls on you as the customer depends on which model we're using with Azure. So as before, when we are a total on-prem process, we have responsibility for all of our security, the physical network, the hosts, operating systems, the applications, identity and account access management, client endpoints, and especially data governance. However, as you can see, there is never a time when your provider will be responsible for all aspects of your security model. There are always going to be things that you have to do yourself, account and access management, identity and directory. You can set some things up with multi-factor authentication here at this level that allows you to not have to log in because it knows who you are, but it is a shared responsibility. Microsoft uses a defense in-depth ring as a guideline for what protections are adequate for the data. In almost all cases, when somebody is attacking you, it is to get your data, whether that data is stored in a database, on disks, on virtual machines, if it's on cloud disks for Office 365 or cloud storage. And it's the responsibility of those people storing that data to ensure that it's properly secured. If it's your organization, that's probably you. If you're using a cloud service, you have transferred that risk onto your provider. It is their responsibility to make sure that that data is properly secured and safe. Now, I don't know about you, but in our organization, I don't think we have very many people who are security experts. Microsoft, on the other hand, has hundreds of people who are dedicated to keeping your data safe. That's their entire job. So on top of those security people that are there working to keep your data safe, there are also concerns for physical security. You've got to make sure that nobody can get into where your hardware is. We have identity and access. We have to make sure that only people who are authorized can get into the data or the systems that they need. We need to make sure that our perimeter is well defined and protected so that we're using things like firewalls to look for malicious attacks against the network. At the network layer, we want to make sure that we're limiting connectivity across the resources. We want to make sure at the compute level that we implement endpoint protections and we keep our systems patched. We will make sure that there isn't any malware and that our users are educated in not to click those links. We want to make sure that the vendors that we purchase our applications from or that our teams that are building applications have integrated security into their development lifecycle to reduce the number of vulnerabilities. And if all else fails, data breach. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So here's an overview of the Security Center that's provided with Microsoft Azure. We can see that I have some issues with the servers that I have set up and running. It's mad at me because I've got identity and access resources that aren't set up properly. but it's very intuitive. I come in here and look and I see it's red, right? It wants me to go and fix something. It's looking out for my best interest to make sure that my data is secure and that I'm doing all of the things that I need to do as a user to make sure that my organization stays safe. Role-based access control is the authorization system that you use to manage access to your Azure resources. To grant access, you assign roles to users, groups, service principals, or manage identities at particular scope. And those are the three big pieces: roles, managed identities, and scopes. This is a core service. It's included with every subscription, and it provides very granular access management for the resources. The access control panel, also known as the identity access management, is where you access and delegate these roles. So when you add a role assignment, Azure provides you with a whole list of options that you can do. Some of the basic ones are owner, contributor, and reader. But then when we get down to some of the very specific services that we have talked about, we have API management service contributor, API managed service operator role. So they can get very granular. So now that you have some resources created, your day-to-day work may or may not involve creating those resources. Maybe you're a contributor to specific resources, or you just have read-only rights. Azure allows us to have customizable dashboards that you can create for you or your organization. This is the My Dashboard that comes straight out of the box after you've created your Azure account. It's pretty plain Jane, but it does let us customize it. So when you push the edit button, it takes us to this group where we can have tiles, where we can add a clock, we can add the things that we're interested in, metrics, charts, security analysis. You can spread this out a little bit. These two little service, health, and marketplace, they were on our original, but you couldn't see them because of their placement. So then when you're done finishing moving around and getting your dashboard created, you push the Done Customizing button, and now this is what my dashboard looks like. I can get easily to the marketplace, I can see what time it is, I have all of my resources listed, and again, some of the resources that Azure and Microsoft make available for you for tutorials and learning, and some quick starts for creating resources. Here's the big question. What's it going to cost? Everybody wants to know. Yeah, I know, just keep throwing money at it. You're fine. Seriously, there's an app for that, the Azure Pricing Calculator. So we could go out to the Azure Pricing Calculator and we can select products and create an estimate to calculate approximately what it's going to cost us to run our cloud services. You can do that all yourself. So again, on the left are all of those categories that we talked about before: compute, networking, storage, containers, database, analytics. And when you click on each of those, you get a list of the items that are in there. You can also use some of the example scenarios that are already built for popular tasks that people want to do now. So for this example, this is advanced analytics on big data. So we can see here that it's built this in a very graphical user interface where we have log files and custom apps that come into our Azure Data Factory where we ingest it. We store it in the Azure Data Lake. We have a Polybase that comes out, and we have some Azure Synapse, and this calculates and tells you how much this will cost. Some of the best resources that you can get: the Microsoft Learn. Microsoft has done an amazing job at putting together documentation and helping people like you and me learn the basics of their products. They've established learning pathways and certifications that allow you to show and demonstrate your ability to work with and be involved with cloud technologies. Pragmatic Works also has some of our archived webinars that are available for you to watch. So We want to review. We have looked at the basic understanding of the physical infrastructure used to create the cloud that Microsoft has built, the types of things that you can do with Azure, and the benefits of using the cloud services that are available. Again, my email address is landrews@pragmaticworks.com. You can follow me on Twitter, landrews5807. I'll open it up for questions. I got done a little earlier than I thought. The slide with the training links again. Yes, it's possible to show the slide with the training links. There you go. If a query takes 5+ minutes in SQL Server DB, will it likely take the same time in Azure SQL database? I don't know. I would have to look into that. It may also depend on the SQL Server that it's deployed to, how it's provisioned, how many cores it has, the physical infrastructure that you've built that SQL Server on. Let's see. So I'm trying to make this screen bigger for the questions. All right, let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, yes. Ah, wait, come back. I finally got the questions. And can the SQL database be configured with our specs? Absolutely. You can actually, in some of the PowerShell functions, you can create databases to the exact specifications that you want to and deploy them either through the PowerShell or in the creation on in the cloud. You could specify those either hardware configurations or the database configurations. Any chance I could have, I believe that the slides and this is going to be recorded, so Crystal will send out a link to this, so if there's any slides that you want to look at again, they'll be up. Or you can email me afterwards and I can send them to you. Yes, we can get the slides, the training information, yep. How did you get to the pricing example model again? That is, let's see. Right there. There's the link for the pricing calculator. Niels, I don't know exactly how you use the Azure Active Directory. This was more of an overview of the types of things that you could do. One of the reasons that I'd asked the questions about what types of things people would be interested in learning more about was so that I could then create some additional webinars and trainings that would focus on the things that people are interested in. So I will add the Azure Active Directory how-to guide to my things to do. Jay Yin wants to know what's the correct way to pronounce Azure. I don't know. I say Azure. If we just want to sign up and play around Azure environment, do we have to start paying for it? No, when you first sign up, you will get I want to say it's a $200 credit to use for the first 30 days. And then there are other services that will be free for the first year. I don't have a breakdown of each of those services or what all you can do once your $200 credit runs out. But again, if you are using just dev machines, don't have to make them very big. They don't have to last very long or do very much work. You're only charged for the metered usage that happens in the resources that you use. So Jeremy wants to know, in creating users, where would I create a service account? I assume you're talking about a service account, like a SQL Server SA account or a like a network user account. And again, that would be a little bit outside of the scope of this, but it's within the networking environment you create those service accounts. And which scenarios would you use Cosmos DB? Cosmos DB is really cool. It is a NoSQL database that allows you to have almost instantaneous updates around the world. So say you have a team in China and a team in the US. The Cosmos DB has such a high, or I guess low latency. It's just super quick to get that data updated and then pushed out to the replicas. At PASS this year, they did a great session on the Cosmos DB and replications and how that works. So if you wanted to go look at one of the keynotes from Summit, they did a great thing on the Cosmos DB and how that works. So we got the training links. Is there an inbuilt CI/CD pipeline on Azure? I don't know, Namrata. I'd have to look into that and research that. All right. On the dashboard, it had the time. Yes, that is my local time. So what are the main courses, office, and average cost per course, and are any certifications included? So most of the trainings that are available on the Microsoft Learn pathways are all free. They just put those pathways out there and you can go and you can learn anything you want to learn. The certifications do cost. I don't know off the top of my head how much they cost, but there are different levels of certification. There's the AZ900, which is Azure Fundamentals, which is a lot of what I just talked about. There are higher levels of certification. You can get Data Factory Engineer. You can get certified in almost any of those very specific services, and those take much longer and probably cost much more to do. Yes, thank you. So we got some questions here. What advantage does Azure have over AWS? I don't know. I haven't really looked into AWS to see what offerings they have. I know that the Microsoft team in Azure is really working to provide all of this so that it's integrated so that you have all of your data, your apps, and your storage in one place and can manage that. And I don't know what AWS has that Azure may or may not. What are the differences between SQL Server running under Azure and on-prem SQL Server? Again, I don't know, because this wasn't really specific to the SQL Server portion of that. But again, I can look into building another presentation on that. What are the best tools we need to know to monitor Azure environment like SQL Server VMs and Azure SQL? I'm pretty sure that the Azure Portal provides you with almost everything that you need to do the monitoring. You can use the Azure Data Studio, I believe, is the SQL tool. It allows you to create like SQL notebooks, and it's a pretty cool little tool. It does not do everything that SQL Server Management Studio does. Data Factory does not do everything that SSIS does yet, but they're working on getting that done. Most of the resources available for training and certification, like I said, the Microsoft Learn. Yes, 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 yes. Can hear, okay. All right, I think I got through all of the questions. All right. Any other questions? We finished up just a little bit early.
I'm going to give like another 2 minutes or so just to see if anyone types anything else in.
Yeah. Crystal, when do you think you'll have the webinar posted, the recording?
All of the recordings are posted on YouTube, and they are posted about 24 hours after the session has ended. So they should get an email link around about 1 o'clock, probably a little bit earlier than that because we ended it a little bit earlier today, so about 12:47.
Yep.
I see a few more questions that just came in.
Let's see. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot because I didn't see anything. Hello.
I got some at 11:47. One says, can a cost limit be placed in Azure for charging our credit card, not going over a certain amount?
Maybe. I'd have to look into that. I'm sure that there are spending limits that can be set up.
Okay, we got a few more coming in. It says, do you sponsor the Microsoft Fundamentals course?
Do I sponsor it?
Yeah.
Is it? No, I don't think we sponsor that. Do we?
I don't think
Get the whole
so.
scroll thing to.
I'm not sure if you're just asking if we recommend it or if we legit sponsor it, Alan. The next question is, can you evaluate the database on Azure for free?
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, for the first 30 days when you have your $200 credit, you can spin up a SQL server, you can write data to it, you can spend your $200 however you want to use, and you can use the pricing calculator to figure out how long that $200 would last you depending on what you want to do. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the scroll bar thing for the questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Open up. I can't get it to show them.
Did you expand the questions panel?
I did, and it's just
Still not showing up.
well, it's like all scrunched up and I can't see the questions. The controller thing is like.
Try putting your mouse in the right-hand corner or any of the corners of the expand screen that you have for the questions and just drag it and see if that helps.
Yeah, it popped it out. Anyway, any more questions? Did anything else come through?
There's another question. Let's see. Let me put that down here. Can we know we did that one? Free. Can Azure link. If a trial period expired in Azure, can it be restored after it's expired?
No. You get your 30 days and your $200, and then it starts. That's it. Now, if you have multiple email addresses, you can set up an Azure account for each one of those email addresses, so you could potentially get, but you wouldn't be able to take the work that you got from one and move it to the other. It'd be like starting fresh again. But you get $200 your first 30 days, and they start sending you emails. Hey, you haven't used all of your credits yet. Are you sure you don't want to come back in and do some work?
The next question is, can SSIS and SSRS be used with Azure SQL Database?
Yes, I believe they can.
Next question. Some organizations host the Azure training. MS wants people to get the fundamental training. I'm not sure if that was a.
Do you know if it's possible to replace your entire in-house server infrastructure and replace it with Azure and have PCs connect to Azure to be able to do everything you formerly did in-house? Absolutely, you can do that. It's a shift and lift. That's what a lot of organizations are currently doing in order to get the benefits of having great infrastructure without having to invest a whole lot of money into rebuilding your entire server farm. I do know for sure that Power BI can connect to Azure. It's one of the data flow sources. Can existing on-prem SQL databases be imported into the cloud? Yes. I'd have to do like another session on, again, some of these questions are very specific to what doing specific tasks rather than what Azure can kind of do for you overall. So I will take some of these questions and work on another presentation that addresses some of those specifically for the SQL information, the database. Anything else? Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you learned something. I hope you go out and start an Azure account and build cool things.
Absolutely. And Leslie, thank you so much for hosting. This is a very informative session. We really appreciate you coming out and hosting that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of
No, not a problem. You did a great start. You came in new and you did a great start. It's excellent.
fun. Thank you.
Um, for everybody else, like Leslie was saying, like I was stating, um, you guys will receive the link to the recording. And if you guys are looking for any other further recordings, all of our recordings are on YouTube. So please feel free to check that out. It will be under our YouTube page, Pragmatic Works, and then under free trading playlist. But like I said, you guys will receive the link tomorrow in your inbox, probably around 11 or 12:50 or so. So just look out for that. And if you guys have any questions for myself or Leslie, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you guys enjoy the webinar, and I hope you guys have a rest of your good start to your new year and a great year. Thanks so much again, and you guys have a wonderful day.